Did it ever cross your mind that since you never needed to lift a finger, or you don't need to lift a finger to earn any money in your life with your endowment with Infosys shares, that you would just spend your money in the pursuit of things to do with the humanities and not to do with the business world?
No, maybe not to that extent. I think there is a deeper desire to do something, as I say, some mehnat, and not to live a life only of pleasure seeking, which, and so on. So I don't think I ever considered some of these other options.
Okay, let's talk about the mehnat then. Where does the word Soroko come from? What does it mean?
It's actually, it doesn't really mean much. It was a former name of our company, or rather it was an abbreviation for an older name that we no longer use. And then we just thought, it sounds nice. It sounds like a misspelling of Sirocco, the gentle Mediterranean breeze. And so we just kept the name. We didn't really think much about the name. So yeah, it doesn't really stand for anything.
Oh, now you disappoint me, Sir Rohan. I mean, knowing your backdrop, I was quite hoping that you would tell me that there is some Greek etymological root for that word, which and I would be enlightened by that. But you're saying nothing as elevated as that.
No, I'm sorry. I wish I had a grand story to tell. I don't. It is no. It's rather plain.
No, but your pursuit is quite grand because, for the last many decades, we've seen so many large American corporations, manufacturing corporations, trying to tell us that this is how we are going to create efficiencies on the shop floor in the factories. And in a sense, from what I read about Soroko, you're trying to do that in the field of technology services or in the digital domain, the equivalent of what a Toyota could be doing on the shop floor. Is that off the mark, or how else would you describe Soroko to a layperson?
Yeah, so I'd say it slightly differently, maybe. So it is true, first of all, historically, that when it's come to manufacturing or blue-collar work, there's been a very detailed, disciplined science for understanding it, for improving it, for measuring it, and so on. But there isn't an equivalent for office work or white-collar work. Now, that's beyond technology services. I mean, if you're in a bank or an insurance company, or pretty much any job where you use a piece of software to do your work, and that's, by the way, most of us. In fact, this very interview is happening through software, right? Even this, in some sense, does not have a more detailed or rigorous science for understanding or improving it. But even within that, what we basically attempt to do is, when you think about work, and when I say work, I'm only referring to office work or white-collar work. When I think of work, there are two ways of looking at work. One is what we all do individually. So what do you then do every single day? What do I, Rohan, do every single day? And we have a set of variables about our work that we control. What applications we spend time on, and so on and so forth. But then there's this other part which we don't control, the kind of work that we do, how the work needs to be done, the kind of processes we need to follow, the kind of applications that we encounter, the inefficiency of these applications or the technology and so on. So these are all decisions that management typically take and individual employees don't take. And so what we've recognized is that if you want to bring about a rigorous way of understanding and improving office work, then we should focus on the latter bucket. That is, those parts of office work that employees do not have any control over and yet are subjected to. And if you can gather data about this, then management can use this to figure out how they can help their people and their teams have a better experience at work, and the end result being be more productive at work. And this is different from saying, I want to figure out who is doing what and how much time they're spending and why are you taking a 1-hour bathroom break. That is not what I'm talking about. In fact, I would say that is the erroneous way in which people have tried to improve office work. Instead, we ask, how can we support you, each employee or each team, be more successful by focusing on the environment in which you do your work. And we have attempted to solve this problem by using technology. And historically, people have attempted to solve this problem through consulting or one-on-one interviews. And instead, we've used technology to solve this problem.
So, for people who don't understand so much about technology, let me try and ask you to elucidate what you just said through a very simple mechanism of, say, work from home, which has become such a big norm in the last couple of years. And here is a management which is trying to figure out whether there are gaps in efficiencies because of the workforce working from home. If Sirocco were to be brought in and asked to help in this process, how would you go about measuring the efficiency or the inefficiencies of working from home, and how would you be able to augment the process of inducing more efficiency within the workforce from home?
Right. So great question. So let's see. So when the first and primary challenge when we all work from home is that the metaphorical hallway is no more, right? So if I'm a manager of a team, can't really walk down the hall or meet people, see what's bothering them, ailing them, and so on. In fact, it's hard. And so with that gone, the other kind of difficult aspect is more and more work is now digitized, right? We're reading more digital documents and whatever else. So you don't have physical documents at home. You're reading everything, or you're doing everything through technology. And a consequence of this is the base understanding of how, if I'm a manager of a team, and the base understanding of how this team is doing work itself is poor today. In fact, we have an article that we published based on our platform and our data in Harvard Business Review, where we showed that on average in this post-pandemic world, managers cannot account for 60% of the patterns of work that exist in their teams. And that means that the baseline understanding itself that a manager has of how his or her own team is working, and therefore what should be improved, is very poor. So if you don't even understand the baseline, what are you going to improve? Now, this is not to take a ding against managers, nothing against managers. It is inherently hard because people are working remotely, and more digitalization means that you actually have less understanding of how work happens. That's the first part. So now the second part is, okay, so what can you do, right? So our thought process here is, by deploying the kind of technology and software that we have built, what managers can begin to understand is, hey, I have a team of 20 or 30 people scattered across, working remotely, working from home. Now, what are common patterns that emerge across this team as they do their work that are sources of friction? So for example, is my technology slowing my team down? If so, what is the data to prove that my technology is slowing my team down? Remember, you have no hallway you can walk down and see these things anymore, right? We're able to answer that question. Okay, and then if my technology is slowing work down, which parts of my technology, where should I invest to make my technology go faster or to have a more seamless experience for my team, as an example? Or second, is my team doing the same bit of work the same way, or are they doing the same bit of work many different ways? So this is a very common pattern that we have seen in a post-pandemic world. I suspect it existed even prior, but it has certainly gotten worse in the post-pandemic world, which is, for example, you go to an insurance company and you ask the manager, hey, how many different ways are you people resolving a claim? And they'll tell you, here are 5 different ways. But when you actually go see on the ground, people are probably resolving it 30 or 40 different ways. Now, it turns out those different ways may be legitimate. Maybe some employees needed training. Maybe their team needed help with documentation, or maybe some parts of it are just some legacy pieces of work that have been left behind. But you have no real way of discovering these different variances in how work is happening. And that too, we are able to answer with the kind of data and the information that we gather and we produce and so on. And this is obviously made more challenging in a post-pandemic world, because you now don't have a real sense of, if you wanted to as a manager know, is my team doing this 100 different ways, how do you even figure it out? It's very hard. Unless you go to each person's home and talk to them, and even then you probably won't be able to achieve this. We solve this through technology. So here are some seemingly sort of direct ways in which how the kind of data that we're talking about is able to help managers in a post-pandemic world.